Right.
There are two, one from Councillor Tony Marvin and one from Councillor Dean Fry.
Thank you very much. Declarations of interest or any agenda item this evening? None indicated, thank you very much. Minutes of the previous meetings, the Town Council meeting of the 10th of December for approval. I take it they've all been circulated down and again. We can take them as read. Yeah. I will propose it, please. Councillor Gary, second. Councillor Bourne, all those in favour? Thank you very much, that's unanimous. Planning Committee meeting of the 18th of December and the Planning Committee meeting date of January 2019 for information. Thank you very much. Right, straight to agenda item 4, the finance report. Clark, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Balances at 31st of December, 220,274. The bank accounts have been reconciled to that date. Payments due in December, total of 30,764, 2,586, of which is from Salisbury Gardens. The full list is attached as usual for both the Town Council and the Salisbury Gardens accounts. Receipts during December total 8,706, of which, as you can see, 4,808 was Salisbury Gardens rents. And finally, the list of variances for the 9 months of the financial year to the end of December. Again, that's attached, showing on the bottom line that expenditure is 11,500 less than budget, and receipts over the period 1,317 higher than budget. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions, members, on the finance report? No? Thank you. Can I have a proposer? Councillor Mack, seconded please. Councillor Lucas, all those in favour? It's unanimous. Thank you very much indeed. The management of financial risk, agenda item number 5. The purpose of this report is to ask members to review the financial risk management arrangements currently in place and after making any amendments to adopt it for the coming financial year. Clark.
Yes, I have nothing to add to what's in the report. As you know, this is a statutory requirement that we formally review the risk assessment in respect of financial management, and adopting the same approach as in the past, because we haven't changed our practices in the Office for the Management of Finances. And this financial risk assessment, as I think I've said, is one that was supplied as a guide for us by our previous external auditors. So it's open for any questions or comments.
Thank you. Do any councillors have any comments and or questions? I'll read out and or amendments to the report. Not too speedily. Okay, could I have a proposal to accept? Councillor Logan, seconder. Thank you. Councillor Mack, all those in favour? Thank you very much. Again, unanimous. The casual vacancy, which comes about due to the resignation of ex-councillor James Toogood. We should all know what this means, but if you'd like to just go through it, Clark, please, for the benefit of members.
Yes, I've just repeated for information the usual process guidance that we're required to follow in respect to casual vacancies, and made the observation that to confirm what members are already aware of, that Jim Toogood is happy to continue advising on building related projects as a volunteer, as he has been doing for the last 7 years. And I've added, as you can see, the outcome of the by-election for the vacancy in Loverville ward, which has resulted in the election unopposed of Colin Watling as a member, and we'll be arranging an induction process for him before the next town council meeting so that he can join the meeting in February.
Okay.
Can I just ask if, sorry,
Just a matter of clarification, the Colin Watling is replacing Billy Hill, not James. Is that correct?
That's right.
Yeah, that's how I'm reading that. That's
but that was for
Replacing the Loverville.
Yeah, that's just my point.
And you have the notice of election attached to it as well. So
I was just going to ask, not that it means anything to anyone, just from one perspective, if anybody knows if this is working on a personal basis or.
No, I don't.
we have,
Yep.
well, some of you have met him.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because the
Well, it's neither here or there as far as
No,
this
I don't.
process
no,
goes, but I just
don't.
wondered if anybody.
He was one of the properties, wasn't he?
Yes.
Properties.
Okay. So, in the normal course of events, he'll be in attendance at the next.
he will
Council.
arrange an induction. He works full time, so it'll be an evening or weekend session to fit in.
Right, and we don't need to vote on this.
No, you don't. No.
Thank you very much.
So, Clark, can you tell us where exactly we are now with step B of the process? Has the statutory notice been published?
Yes, the notice goes public tomorrow.
Okay, so it's 14 days from tomorrow.
Until the date is February the 4th, is the key date for closing date for nominations, for 10 people to write in.
Yeah.
And we will propose to use the same process we did for Lowerville to encourage people to sign a
Yes.
letter. Because that seems to be the stage at which things break down. I mean, people simply don't write to somebody they've never heard of for something like that. So we have a standard letter which the Isle of Wight Council Elections Officer has approved, and we approach people and ask them to sign.
Yes. And then subsequently, in the hope that you have multiple people put themselves forward, and as well.
Yeah. And of course, also, if colleagues around the table know of anybody, any interested parties, please encourage them to put their name forward. As the clerk has just said, it's a shame, really, at this level, town and parish council level, that more people don't actually physically write or even email the returning officer. Whereas if it was a county council level, then the parties would have swung into gear by now and try to get some people to put themselves forward. It's a real shame that
And if I may add, Mr. Bear, if anybody has connections with residents of Ventnor West who might be prepared to sign a letter, I'm happy to provide you with a copy.
Okay, yeah. Well,
Yeah,
okay.
Likewise.
Thanks.
okay, does anybody else have anything to add?
Nope.
Thank you very much. Shore Road Public Toilets. I always smile when I read that phrase, Shore Road Public Toilets. Because every time I pass the old public toilets next to the pond are shut. Okay, the purpose of this report is to advise members of the deteriorating condition of the Shore Road public toilets and consider the proposal for dressing of it, which is one of the things that Jim Toogood was at the forefront of looking at. I guess, Brian, would you like to speak up to this?
Yes, I mean the toilets are quite well used and they're functional, but they are very, very deteriorated. And one of the things that concerns me is they are cleaned and sort of kept secure by volunteers. And I think we owe those volunteers at least to have a building which is easy to keep clean. The sanitary ware is not easy to keep clean. The building floods. The windows don't close. There's a whole catalogue of things which need to be attended to, and sum of money which we've got on a quotation seems a bit alarming, but I feel it'll give us at least 10 years further life for that building, and it's regularly used. It's used a lot by people who are doing the Undercliff walk, you know, through to Shanklin. And so that's a
And I would
It's
say,
very valuable.
I would say for a lot of people, having public toilets there makes that walk possible.
It does, yes. I mean, otherwise, you know, you've got a long distance between Shanklin and Ventnor.
Yes.
Yeah, so I certainly would support us in placing an order with a contractor. It's not easy to find a contractor with this sort of work because it's a very, very small amount of work of about 7 different trades. And so you need a contractor that's sort of all rounder that you can trust. And hopefully we found one in this.
Well, there's no point in me adding anything to that because I know nothing about building works or anything associated with that. So if anybody else has got anything to add to that, then feel free to do so. Stephen?
I can only say that my experience of getting people to tender is very, very hit and miss. A lot of many people express interest and then the quote never arrives. I guess you had a similar experience here. You contacted 3 companies and only one responded.
Yes, everybody's interested until they see what's involved and they realise it's not a straightforward job and you don't hear any more.
Yeah, I know the experience. Well, they are most definitely a public good.
Yes.
Public toilets, most definitely.
Right, so paragraph 3 addresses the refurbishment attached to the course of detailed spec of required works prepared by Councillor Lucas and uses the basis of the invitation to tender, and also attaches the only quotation received in response to that invitation and a total of £12,970. So I guess members, the only thing here is to agree whether we take that process forward based on what the previous contributors have said. So the recommendation is to commission the refurbishment works for the Shore Road public toilets from MB Associates and to fund the cost on the basis of a 50% contribution from reserves and 50% from the 2019/20 preset. Could I have a move? Councillor Geddes, seconded by Councillor Lucas. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you very much.
Very good. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that work, Ryan. It's very, very good indeed. Agenda item 8, Ventnor skate park requests. The purpose of this paper is to ask members to respond to a request from Ventnor skate park in connection with their fund-raising plans. So I don't have any intimate details of this or knowledge of it. So
no, it's just an email making the request, and it's based on, as you can see from the report, from an arrangement that the Town Council agreed to in connection with the previous attempt to raise funds for purchase of the Methodist Church as a base for the boxing club at that time. The advantage it gives to organisations like the skate park is that they're going to ask people to commit funds, not just to make a promise, but to actually commit funds, and therefore people need the assurance that the money is going to be safe. And therefore, as with the boxing club, if you approve this, we would receive any donations that came with a minimum of £100, because we don't want to be collecting £20 coins. And those funds would then be held until either they were released into the funding process, or if for any reason the funding application to Sport England is unsuccessful, then the money will be returned to the people who gave it. Alison and I have managed this before, and Alison in particular, we have no problems with this if the council are happy to provide the support for skate park.
right, and this will be held in our general fund.
But it's accounted for separately. Yes.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, they'll have different.
Can I ask the clerk, is it possible to get HSBC to put this in an account bearing even a small amount of interest? Because certainly with the boxing club, it was a large sum of money there for a very long period, and it didn't gain anything for us or even the council. So,
Well,
is it possible to have that?
we can hold it in our deposit account, which has a small amount of
Yes,
interest.
it's pitiful, but
I don't-
Blood and stone are the two words that I have in mind, right?
I'm not keen to go through the process of establishing a separate account with HSBC.
no,
because
okay.
it's just simpler to do this, but I'm not
Neither
sure.
have I. In view of my experience as a trustee of the War Memorial Fund,
Yes,
which ended in
any
complete
dealings with
disaster.
banks is hard work.
Yeah, it's not that, it's trying to get it back, and it disappears, it's a problem. Okay, does anybody want to speak to this, or against it in fact? No?
No, I'm very pleased that the skate park have actually sort of gone back into gear again.
Yeah, I am.
I thought it had withered a bit, that process.
Not least because when my hips are up and running, I shall be.
Yeah.
He lied with his teeth. Okay, could I have the proposer formally moved? Thank you, Councillor Coffin, and a seconder. Councillor Logan, all those in favour? Thank you very much indeed. Zooming along, the Hampshire Association of Local Councils. The purpose of this paper is to report to members on the meeting of the Hampshire Association of Local Councils held on Thursday the 10th of January. So, Councillor Matt, would you like to? Or Mark, I don't mind which.
Yeah, you can go to that. So moving on from the paper from the clerk, hopefully that's fairly self-explanatory. The meeting itself, I think Houth wanted to come together to their island development partners just to ensure that they were still in contact with us and they would still deliver the services that we would want from them, having us left our local association. But I think very much it's been brought forward because the Isle of Wight Association had accused Houth of poaching members from the island. As I'm sure older members of this council will remember, we spent sort of the last 2 or 3 years with iWalk trying to understand and help them change the constitution in certain ways so it's more viable for the whole of the island councils to operate. I think we've always understood the fact that a secretary working 10 hours a week is just not, it cannot keep up with the workload that's needed to deliver the service that indeed somewhere like Hampshire does. We have access to their legal services, and I think quite importantly as well that the clerks have, there's an affiliation with a county association that the clerks can then call on as well as their own constitution. So so it was quite an interesting meeting. As you can imagine, it'd be lots of, and it would be remiss of me to mention any names, but there is still quite a lot of underlying feeling between certain councils and iWalk. I don't think we at Ventnor share that because we've been quite straight where we've been. We've asked them to try and change things. We've done a couple of presentations. I think when you get told to shut up at a meeting, you've come to the end of that road, and that was the decision we took. But it still does rankle with other towns and parishes on the island. So I think there is still a situation within there that there is a lot of what goes on at iWalk is still led by certain personalities within certain councils. That's part of the structure we wanted to change because that's not good for anybody. But that seems to continue. So I think that's where it stands really, and we can, shall we say, let them get on with it. I don't think it will last very long because they might be at the tipping point now as a member association organisation. If their fees aren't coming in, I would think their tipping point is quite close to. So out of the 33, I think there's 9. Are we at 9? Not within iWalk at the moment. 8 not within. That includes Shanklin, does it? That includes Shanklin, who have never been part of it, to be fair. They've always run their own furrow and are not part of HALC either. But we are certainly very encouraged with HALC and their presentation on Thursday. Previously, we had spoken to the National Association as well, because they thought the problems here were warranted to come and actually visit the island and find out. Again, we've been quite open with that, ourselves and the other member council or non-member councils. So they referred it to HALC come over, and yeah, we should be all okay. And should we need the services of the association, that should come forward. I'm quite impressed with HALC. They're quite forward going, and they've just been asked to take over the whole of Berkshire's services. So fairly, again, so something fairly, with when you're looking at a council population, fairly similar to the island, but of course involves a lot more money because there's a lot more people out there. So
because the Prime Minister's constituency is next door.
Yeah, indeed. But there, yes. So yes, so I'm assured that the leader of Hampshire Council, Roy Perry, is very much behind this. Is quite happy that the island are part of, or certain members are part of HALC. There would come a situation, I think, if IWALC does fail, that Hampshire would then have to look at the viability of taking on the island, because the money, as they see it, the bottom line just doesn't work for the North Council. So there would have to be some intervention, maybe from government level at that point. I think LGA have certainly been looking at this as well. So it's certainly been raised at the NALC AGM and the Local Government Association AGM recently, that with the viability maybe not being there. So should it come to that, we'll think again. But
okay, thanks.
All in all, very good.
Just before I let us cover Council's contribute, you certainly remember, as part remember, you remember the presentation of Joe Kennett and others around in this very room. We spoke about it, and I think we came out knowing less about IWALC than we did when the meeting started. It was one of these crazy situations. I've been approached myself by, I'm not addressing you, but mentioned names, so I will do. Shirley Smart, Harry, obviously, although he's not in the electric council, he was on the scrutiny. Alistair Stephen Bembridge, and a couple of others about it. And my response to all of them has always been the same: well, come to us with something positive and we'll look at it. But response, there has never been any. And I find it very disheartening that seems to be the way things are going. They seem to be just clinging on to it just because it's called the Isle of Wight Local Government instead of the Hampshire Association of Local Councils. But something in capital letters has to be done if it is to remain a viable option. And my take on this, ever since I've been a councillor, I've been very negative about it, but only because there's been nothing positive to be positive about. As far as I'm aware, other members might have something different to say about it, but that's certainly my take on it. So I'll shut up. Anybody else?
So I think just adding on to that, so within HALC you've got 8 divisions. Seven. So if the Isle of Wight was to become, let's say, I think it takes a third of the island town and parishes to suggest we want to be part of Hampshire, and you become a division of Hampshire. But we were told, talking about it's the Isle of Wight and Men of Vectis from 1898, there we go, that executive position on the National Association would stay with the Isle of Wight. So it's not a situation that it's losing. You're not losing any authority in that respect. We still have voting rights within the National Association. So beyond that, I can't see what the problem is.
1 out of how many nationally?
Sorry?
1 out of how many nationally?
80. It covers the whole of England and Wales.
Thanks again. Does anybody have anything?
I'd just ask what you were saying about if IWALC were to fail, and HALC would have to see if it were viable to. What do you mean?
They look at whether they could offer the same full amount of service as they do to their development partners as now. So at the moment, as development partners, we can buy into their situation because we would then travel. I guess if you've got the whole of the island, towns and parishes, we would then, if it were to fail, then Hampshire as the next county association to come in and take over, how much would that membership fee be that Hout would have to charge? Because then they would have to
They'd
bring
have to
personnel
come.
onto the island.
Yes,
so
yeah,
that's
yeah.
that's
Okay, thank
pretty
you.
much, yes.
Yeah.
Logistically,
Yeah.
that's the problem. It's logistics, and there's 3 miles of water once again. Account for that.
I do have one question as well. So as far as you know, the challenge from IWALC to HALC has run out of steam. Have they reached the end of the road there? Because I did have a feeling there's perhaps a bit of risk to this council if suddenly the road was pulled away from the development partners. But they've gone to the end of the road there.
It pretty much has. I mean, HALC have gone to them with a compromise and said, look, we can work with you. Let's do some buy-in services. Let's look at that for your members. And that hasn't, thus far, they haven't had any response to that. I think the timeline was IWALC was sort of half threatening HALC to get something done before the October National Association AGM, and they did meet with IWALC just in time for that. So that's been a period of over 3 months now. And so according to Mike and Dawn, they haven't had any comeback. They've given them a compromise. They've said, look, we can help to work with you, and they've had nothing more.
This case closed, more or less?
Pretty much,
yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, that ties in with most everything I know about them as well. Okay, well, thank you very much indeed. Do you have anything to add? Thank you very much. Inside. This is why Gary's here. Isle of Wight Council budget. In opening this, I've been away for over the holiday period, but being a good Isle of Wighter, I got the county press that read Funnel File waiting 1.5 hours for ferry because I just missed one. Pretty astounded to read that the council's decision to withdraw funding for travel for certain acute services to Southampton General, which I alluded to earlier on, has saved nothing like what they said it was going to save. And I think that's quite a telling thing, although it's not really a matter for us, but I just think it's something that we should have at the back of our minds when it comes to digesting what comes down the county hall as far as that goes. So the purpose of this paper is to ask if members wish to respond to the current consultation on the Isle of Wight Council proposals for savings in its 2019/20 budget. I don't know if you've all read this in any detail. It's quite an interesting piece of research. Would anybody like to answer the question?
These savings are at the bottom of the barrel, and there's nothing you can say that makes anyone more acceptable than the other. I mean, for instance, the adult social care just saved £1 million on that.
Yeah, that's
It's incredible, absolutely incredible, because they're struggling at the moment. And it's a bit like saying, do you want your right leg cut off or do your left leg cut off? I mean, when you, in terms of comment on these, because every one of them is essential and a lot of them are overstated, I think.
That was my thought looking at some of these. I think as from the Isle of Wight Council's perspective, some of these are bold or whatever word the officers might have advised councillors, and thinking that after 9 years of austerity you're going to be able to save hundreds of thousands of pounds just by reviewing things that have probably been reviewed twice already in that time. It's very optimistic. There are some things that obviously the care thing will affect many people in Ventnor, but the parking changes, and particularly charging for the Esplanade in winter and charging for parking car parks in the evenings, I suspect will be one that many residents will note. Quite what the extra enforcement costs, if any, are going to be in coming down the Esplanade when it's dark in the winter and there's only a handful of cars down there, I don't know, but I think certainly declaring interest as a dog walker, I think that would be unpopular with dog walkers to park down there, to pay to park down the Esplanade in the winter, because there's no parking pressure down there. I think the comments about improving traffic flow and encouraging people to use car parks are just nonsense. It's just a way of raising money, and the fact is, I think if you divide it by 5, I think they're only going to raise £5,000 from charging assuming they're all roughly the same size, charge an event as this for Native Winter. So I think we'll get some kickback from that.
Yes. And out of 60 lines on these proposals, 28 of them are adult social care and children's services, which are very. It always seems to be the people who can't fight back that get hurt.
To be honest, I suspect it's more that it's a sufficiently significant part of the council's expenditure that they run out of other options. And it's, if you've got a big budget, you say, well, we'll review it and hopefully we'll save 3% or something, and that's a big number for social services.
Of course.
But if you don't do anything to save the 3%, it's wishful thinking.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, what you then wonder then is we've got 2 more years of this same amount of savings to come. Where does it then go? Where does it stop?
Well, I was at a meeting, well, I think a few of us were at a meeting upstairs at the Winter Gardens, and Councillor Hutchins said in terms then that they'd probably be able to set their legal budget this time, but for the next 2 or 3 years, they just don't know what they're going to do. And that's what worries me. I mean, if these things here go ahead, and it looks as though they will do, I mean, you have 6,000 here, 10,000 here, but it all, as you just said, Ian, brings a bigger total. But if it's the case now that they're saying that this is as much as we can do, where do we go next year? Where do we go the following year? I mean, it's frightening. And adult social care, children's services and mental health and Ireland are basket cases in any case. So God knows where they're going to be at the end of the next cycle.
My take on this and looking at it is the astounding lack of detail. If I'm being honest, it reads as a wish list. And if you substitute the word review with cut, then you actually might get closer to what we're doing. Yeah.
But social service expenditure, unless you change your criteria, it's mainly demand driven anyway. So although this enables you to set a budget, it doesn't enable you to meet the budget.
To do so.
And the big item on supporting people in their own homes, which actually is, all councils are trying to do that, but you need to spend money, helping people change their homes so that they can stay there longer. And if you can do that, you do save big money. But if you don't do that, you're just denying people care and hoping they'll stay longer.
And actually, what looking at. My personal thing is we've seen a couple of services cut that are actually going to put more stress and pressure onto councils like local area coordinators and the law centre, which is actually going to put more stress onto these services because your front end is gone. So I can't. This just looks like.
Well, I see the map.
We're in unicorn land, I think.
Really. The map I just said in County Press that this was with regard to the law centre. I mean, this is purely an invented, spurious reason for. The Councillor Hutchins has said, well, we'll open it to tender. You don't know who's he want to Roach Pittis or Glanville's who
knows?
At £250 an hour.
Yeah, it's not going to be the same service.
Doesn't work, does it?
No.
Certainly not in my experience of lawyers, which unfortunately has been too much. But there you go.
No, that's right. And I think you certainly find as well within the social care aspects where you're talking about taking money away from commission services so you can do the direct payment, so therefore that's going to be, A, it's going to be efficient and B, it's going to be cheaper. Well, it's not, because you're going to find social care hasn't therefore got the resources to do so, it hasn't got the capacity of the staff resources to do so, so it'll end up going back to the clinical commissioning body in any case, and because it will need to be delivered. Statutorily, it will have to be delivered. And that's certainly what's going to happen with public health. You haven't got, because they've taken away the family platform, now it is national, that's fair enough, but the thing like the local area coordinators, but where's the thing with stopping smoking? Where's the problem with alcohol services? Where's the problem with child obesity? Which, okay, on the island, nationally, it's only a little bit above national average, but if you take that down to ward level, PAN is something like 12% over child obesity levels. So, these things are going to come back because local authorities are going to want them delivered, and it's just going to put an extra strain on the other organisations that they're trying to integrate with as well.
Yeah, and what we're seeing is no preventative services put on, it's all reactive.
Yeah.
And if you're reactions are invariably expensive.
Yeah. And I think we all know once, as Ian said, once you've got a demand service, you just open up a whole can of worms because, people, how people talk about phoning 999 because, well, the Pizza Hut isn't open today. You're going to get more things like that, really, because people aren't going to know there is no preventative service to turn to. There's no one number to go to. I do understand County Hall are trying to mould their frontline services at County Hall, and that's to be amended. But let's hope that does do something. But the majority of people out there will just go, well, where do I go? I will start acting to the services that I expect to be delivering them.
And by the same token, Councillor Mark, there's no reference here to the so-called umbrella or the amalgamation of the bringing in of all the services under one roof, which was talked about incessantly even a couple of years ago.
Yes.
And all of a sudden, there's no mention of it. Where is it gone? There may have been savings to be made there, but
it's gone into a little thing called the local care board, which is never held in public, and you can't find any minutes. So
sure.
Perhaps they haven't got the staff to make those changes.
No, it's the capacity, and I think we were certainly finding that a couple of years ago here, where staff capacity was an issue. Then, now it's going to be. It is going to be a basket case.
Right. Well, it's the 14th of January today. Consultation ends on the 23rd of January.
I'm sure we can.
I'm sure we can get something. Can I ask around the table if anybody's willing to give the time and energy to work with the clerks to formulate a response? Councillor Mark?
Could I, is it possible to ask our county councillor what degree of prioritisation they were able to do on our behalf? Because these are obviously, this wish list has been councillor officer led, but I'd like to know really what opportunity our local councillors on the Isle of Wight Council have had for saying, that one is okay, but we've knocked another one out. I mean, is this something that only Councillor Peter has seen for the first time, or have they had a hand in prioritising it previously?
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's unusual, but Gary, if you don't mind, just helping councillors if you do have any sort of knowledge of the process.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm no longer on the cabinet, but I was on the cabinet until May. So I was very much involved with fire service changes and public protection and that kind of stuff. As a cabinet member, the amount of work that has gone into producing this, and I know you've said there's not enough detail in here, there's a huge amount of detail and work that's gone on behind the scenes, and shall we say an awful lot of argument and discussion to get to this, because everyone accepts, especially the health social care and so on and so forth, these things are extremely unpalatable. And yet we are scraping the bottom of the barrel because there is nowhere else to cut. The next 2 years are going to be, I don't know how we're going to find any further savings. Which is why there's such a big push into regeneration, because that's the only way, by getting some sort of regeneration going and bringing the money in, that's the only way we're going to make ends meet. And that's not going to be easy either, because the regeneration team has been cut to their bones in the past. So you're operating with kind of one and a half people to do regeneration. And so what's been discovered over the last year really is just how cut back the whole of County Hall has been. And there are no extra boxes of officers to open up to get the work done. So I can say from experience just how difficult my negotiations were with the fire service, and I know Claire Mosdell, who's got adult social care, the amount of work that she's put in, and children's services, and all of them, to be honest, the amount of work that's gone in has been phenomenal. So I agree with everything everyone said around the table tonight, but we really are, as Councillor Rees said, we're scraping the bottom of the barrel. There is very little room for manoeuvre. And it is unpalatable. The trouble is, whatever the decision we make, or is made in cabinet, there are people that are going to be unhappy. And that, unfortunately, that's the state we're in with local government funding.
There was a slight ray of light. I think you probably noticed that people around the table noticed that Amber Rudd, the new DFS secretary, said that the cap on social services has got to end in the coming financial round, which was very good news. Although I hope it just wasn't a headline grabber. But what occurs to me, Guy, and it's not for you to answer, but just by way of comment, really, is that let's say county councils, unitary authorities with more clout seem to have more success in dragging some money, shaking the government's money tree, and a few tenors and £20 notes falling into. I'm talking specifically of places like Northamptonshire, which threatened bankruptcy, and all of a sudden a white charger was found with some saddlebags full of money on the side of it.
Absolutely.
But so where is Bob Seeley in all this? Is what I'm trying to say. You know, and it's not a question that you can answer because you're not.
I know. Bob Seeley is a lover of hate character. I think on the island.
Well, we won't go down that road.
I do know that he's raised the profile of the Isle of Wight because he's got huge amounts of energy. And he's actually putting in an awful lot of work. So I know there are things going on behind the scenes. He's got the ear of government. I think maybe because he's government doesn't let go. So I know he's got a huge amount of work going on at the moment, and I'm hopeful that we will get some sort of help. He's concentrating a big thing on the island because the island economy, because we're an island, we're worse off by £6 million a year than an equivalent authority. I know he's in advanced discussions with government to try and sort that issue out. So there's a lot going on behind the scenes. I don't know everything he's doing. I do hear each meeting I go to that, and when we've had meetings with him, there's a lot of stuff going on.
Sure.
So I know he is working very, very hard.
The other thing that occurs to me on this, though, is councils are often very poor at identifying areas where if you spend a bit more money, you actually save overall. And it's far easier to push up charges and cut staff back than it is. And things like income collection or managing contract management are areas where actually you can sometimes save by spending more. And I don't see anything in this.
There's a lot of that being going on. And so
it doesn't leap out from this document.
No, it doesn't. It's not exactly in strip lighting.
I know you mentioned it, Chair, in that you were talking about there's a big push on the one public service and trying to get all the services together to make savings and all that kind of stuff there. That is a project that is ongoing. And it's proving difficult. Partly because there's negotiations with government about areas of land that we need to use and all that kind of stuff. But that is an ongoing project, and we're all very well aware that time coming out.
Yeah, sure.
We've got to get things going sooner rather than later, otherwise it's possibly not going to happen. So there's a huge amount of work going on, but it comes down to resources.
Well, exactly, and I'm pleased to hear, and I hope that is true, that the MP is banging the drum very loudly. There's hope from now because I had an article in today's Guardian I noticed, so I'd be worried about it if I was you. Although it was about the Prime Minister's present troubles, not about social care or anything like that. But it's good to know that getting your insight that you feel that there is something going on in the background, and I'm sure we hope that comes into something.
Well, for example, further on to my involvement with the fire service. Around further work with Hampshire and the combined authority and all these kind of things. That is all about trying to get better value for money out of what we've got and improve the services we've got. So that kind of solution is being looked at across the board. And it literally has been no stone left unturned trying to find extra money.
I might be a bit cynical, Gary, more than you are on that, but when I see those 4 words, better value for money equals cuts to me, and I think that's everybody's, take on it. Yeah, but that's what it seems to, especially, the people who are dependent on these services, and we just have to look around. Look at I was appalled when I saw the front page of the County Press, not that it's directly, but the amount of young people who are roaming the streets now with nothing else to do, and and things like that. There's a reason for all of that, all within the bigger picture.
And that comes back to Ventnor State Park and also
yeah, and it's the answer to all is not money, but it sure would help a lot of it in the final analysis. Thanks very much, Gary, for your insight. It's very much appreciated. So, sorry, getting back. So, Councillors Bond, Logan, and Mac.
No, I'm sorry, I'm not full.
Okay, sorry, Councillors. Does anybody else want to?
Brian,
we've got 9 days.
The only thing I would say is if these are very, very difficult for savings, if you were going to challenge one which is 25,000, you really got to suggest something else that they balance it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's easy to say, don't say that. No,
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So we've got to take a view of shuffling the money if you're going to.
Yes.
Yeah, although all councils have got really wiggle. The small items, there's so many assumptions in the council's budget where the margin area is bigger than the small items. You can always drop some small items and not.
Nobody has more faith in the brilliance of our councillors' arguments in this than I do, but don't let's be under any apprehension that it's going to turn their heads at all at the end of the day. But we owe it to our electors and our constituents to say that we are on their side even with our limited resources. So we really do have to. It's not that something we must do something. It's that we're all very interested in making sure that the best outcome possible comes at the end of the day. Thanks, Guy, again. Okay, thank you very much. So sorry for that, Councillors Mac and Bourne, and myself. I'll add to that. It's a really good Jason, Ian, and myself to work on it with you and Morgan. Thank you very much indeed. Distribution nicely to your report.
That's just the usual, and shorter than usual because, of course, there was a long break and nothing much happened. But you wanted to be aware that the meetings with St Catherine's School about their area of land within Boniface Fields are continuing to be very positive and constructive. And as you can see, we've had a meeting last week where the parameters of the actual boundary of the area they want it's slightly complicated because of things like access and escape routes and those sorts of issues. But we seem to have arrived at somewhere that's workable. And there's now a further meeting which I will go to as well with Ashley Curzon, who's agreed to come on his way to work, which is very welcome, and he's coming with one of his property experts, a surveyor, as well. So hopefully that should end those issues. Our understanding is that the discussions that St Catherine's School are having with the diocese are progressing very well. So this is likely to be an important issue for the coming months. Boniface Fields, we're carrying on with the work. As you can see, some work's been done, and we hope that car parking on site will soon be available thanks to work by Jim Toogood and Brian Roberts and Morgan, who's also joining in. And that cost initially of 11,000 is now down to £400, which is a welcome saving. The risk assessment is going ahead for the site, and we've commissioned Data Warm to conduct the works that the professionals have identified as necessary to reduce the risk of poisoning people. So that's very welcome too. That will happen very, very soon. Not poison people, Salisbury Gardens, we lost a tenant recently who'd been there for 12 months in the top room facing the bay, and we're able to replace the tenancy immediately thanks to the return of somebody who's been here before who was keen to come back. The lease is now signed and in place, so I'm pleased to report that all the building's rooms are occupied and we've had to start a waiting list for people, so that all looks really promising. The South White Parishes Health and Wellbeing Forum continues. There was a meeting last week with, again, speakers this time from Public Health. Working groups have been meeting, as you can see from the information there. And that's all from me now. It'll be longer next month, so don't get...
You don't want to promise anything. Any questions for Clark? Right. Public forum. Well, I'm standard. Just thinking at 7:51.
Just remind members about the informal budget.